Welcome to the Jeff Rubin Show. I'm Jeff Rubin, here today with College Humor's Pat Cassels. How you doing today, Pat?
I'm great, Jeff. Thanks for having me.
You know, we never stopped hanging out, but it's great to be back on recorded media with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Today is going to be our summer movie review episode. Historically, I think you and I, when we're talking on camera, we're talking about video games, but you're actually, I'd say, is fair to say, you're a little more into movies than video games.
Yeah, this power trip is incredible. It's a total inverse of the norm.
And particularly, I think you and I both share a passion for summer movies. I'm doing air quotes around summer that no one can see. Summer movies, you know, like the big blockbusters. And I think we both, particularly you, enjoy smaller movies too, but it's always good to see, like, I always want to see, like, the biggest movies of the year. I want to see, like, what they're trotting out, and summer's the prime time for that.
Yeah, absolutely. There's also, like, there's less pressure when you're seeing them. Sometimes when you see smaller movies or movies that are Oscar movies, there's, like, there's a pressure to like them or to dislike them, and these are kind of, you know, just sort of, you can just sort of lay back. And I saw The Lincoln Lawyer a couple of months ago, and it was like, the movie was not that great, but it was such a relief to see a movie where there was, like, no one really cared about the movie, and it looked pretty good, but it could have gone either way, and it was
no pressure to like it, you're saying.
Exactly.
That's how into movies Pat is. Pat saw The Lincoln Lawyer. If that's not being into the world of cinema, yeah. I don't know what is. So, get this conversation started. What was the best movie you saw this summer?
The best movie I saw this summer was Attack the Block, which was a slightly smaller movie. I hope not, like...
Yeah, everyone's like tuning in, like, let's hear him talk about Transformers.
Yeah. But it's not an arty movie at all.
No, this is good. People should know. I haven't seen it yet, but I've heard nothing but good things, and I want you to tell people. I want you to convince people to see it like you have convinced me.
Yeah, I highly, highly recommend it. It's just, you know, it's about this alien that invades a sort of housing project in East London. And, you know, that's the general setup, but it very quickly, like, becomes something more than just that, like, gimmicky setup.
I'm intentionally trying to avoid, because at this point I'm going to see it, so I'm trying, and I don't know anything about it, which is always exciting when you're going into a movie not knowing anything about it.
Absolutely.
So I'm trying to hear less about it, but there's an Edgar Wright connection too, isn't there?
I believe he produced it, and the guy that directed it is the guy that Edgar Wright co-wrote the upcoming Tintin movie with. So I think they're friends. And then the person I saw with Tom, who we both know, he told me this guy was he wrote for Empire Magazine for a long time. So he comes from, like, a world of just, like, he's just been, like, a movie fan for years and years. And this was, like, he just came out of the gates swinging.
Edgar Wright's one of those people that's so good. You know, he did Scott Pilgrim and Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz, all of which are so good that just anyone in his orbit, just being in his orbit, makes me interested in seeing your product.
Yeah, he does, like, comedy sci-fi so well, you know, and that's not... I feel like that he, like, totally revived the genre, you know, and this one's less tongue-in-cheek than Edgar Wright's movies. It very quickly becomes, like, I won't give any other plot points away, but it very quickly just becomes, like, it's genuinely, I was genuinely suspenseful. It was very exciting.
I get the sense, and I haven't seen it yet, and it just came out a week or two ago, I guess, in America, right? Was it out in England first?
Yes.
But I get the sense this is the movie of the summer. This is the sleeper hit of the summer already. Like, I'm hearing so much good stuff about it, and it's like a virus spreading. Like, everyone's telling everyone to go see it. And I get the sense there's always one of those every summer. Like,
yeah.
What was it last year?
I don't really know what it was last year. I mean, it's all...
There's one of them every summer except last year.
Yeah, that was yeah, exactly. It's been a while since I saw him. Well, you know, Splice was last year.
Oh, yeah.
It didn't... That said, the movie it wasn't a huge hit, successful. You know, it wasn't super successful. But I know I liked it a lot. I know you liked it a lot, and it was just this kind of, and it's very actually they share some similarities. They're very, very quirky, low key science fiction films that are just great.
All right, so I haven't seen it yet, but I'm already willing to vouch for it. Almost, it sounds like people should go see Attack the Block. Got that out of the way.
Nice.
What was your favorite summer movie with a marketing budget of over $50 million?
I guess the two I enjoyed most were Harry Potter, The Deathly Hallows Part 2, which I have not read all the Harry Potter books. I haven't read any of them. I've just seen all the movies. So it kind of caught me off guard. I mean, even the movies themselves I thought were okay. But then the last 3 or 4, because I had to sort of play catch up before the weekend the movie came out, and the first few I'm not that excited about. And then in the last 3 movies, they just find this really cool, like, dark style with Voldemort is such an awesome character, and the makeup they use on Ralph Fiennes is really good. And that 7th movie, I mean, that last movie, granted, it had 7 previous movies of like emotional buildup, so it was kind of cheating. But I was choking up, you know, and I audibly cheered when Ron and Hermione kissed.
I did read the books. I've only read them once, just to give you an idea of my level. I read all the books, but only once. And the movies never totally did anything for me. It was almost like watching a greatest hits of the book. It's unexciting to see a movie where I know everything that's going to happen.
Yeah, I didn't read. Like I said, I hadn't read the book, so I think I had that like pleasure of just enjoying them. Although I knew certain plot points.
Did you know the ending? Because when the Harry Potter books, about the time 5, Order of the Phoenix came out, is when things really turned, and like you had to read the book the weekend it came out. Because of the spoiler, like the spoiler, they were so large that you didn't want to hear the spoilers. And I know for the 5th, 6th, and 7th books, like when I got them, I like hunkered down for a weekend and just like attacked them. I missed the releases of 1 through 4. I got on it kind of late. And
it's amazing how much faster you can read when you're into a book like that. Because I'm not trying to read slow when it's not Harry Potter. It's why is my body ingesting these words at such a faster pace?
Definitely like faster than I would have preferred, faster than I maybe could have enjoyed it. But I'm curious, did you, not reading the books, not being interested in the books, did you know how the 7th movie was going to end before you saw it? Did you know how the saga ended?
Yes, I knew the very broad strokes. I knew like about this sort of flash forward 15 or 20 years. And I also knew it's such an archetype.
Yeah, like what happened? Like now that I'm thinking, like what is there to learn? Like, oh, Harry defeats Voldemort in good reigns.
It wasn't like a spoilery movie. Like there's nothing in it that would have ruined it if I had it.
But there's spoilers in the previous Harry Potter movies, which I think I'm pretty anal about spoiler alerts. So we might go in and like drop guys, we're gonna talk about. I'm willing to go back and drop in later, like guys, if you haven't seen it yet, skip in the next few minutes. But I feel at this point, if you don't know what happens in the previous Harry Potter books, that doesn't warrant a spoiler alert. Anyway, the previous Harry Potters have huge spoilers in it, like Snape killing Dumbledore at the end of Harry Potter 6, which is the Half-Blood Prince. Snape kills Dumbledore is like shorthand for like epic spoiler.
Yeah. But
then by the time you get to the end, it's more of like a good versus evil thing.
Yeah, I had just through osmosis, I had picked up little plot points and stuff like that. But it was still like it wasn't about like for me what I enjoyed it because it was like all these characters like banding together. I mean, the best like 10 minutes, the best 10 minutes or 15 minutes is like when they finally get back to Hogwarts and like everyone's rallying up for this big battle. Yeah. It kind of reminded me of the end of Battlestar when they're like, there's like all these characters you've known for so long, like coming together and like rallying up, and it was just so exciting, you know. When Maggie Smith was great.
Yeah, she was really exciting, and it's so fun when Snape was like flip flopping around and It seems to me, as someone who read the books, and again isn't a huge fan but read the books, it was always hard for me to imagine someone who hasn't read the books enjoying the movie, because there's so many random instances of like, oh, you must talk to like where you're expected to appreciate the history of like Hufflepuff.
Yeah, I did feel like I was missing certain things, and actually the mythology of it and the Voldemort sort of backstory was a little unclear to me, which I guess says a lot just to the filmmaking quality and the acting and just how it was still able to like emotionally carry me. But like I said, the movies I think those last 3 movies, they just entered this cool dark. I mean, there's a scene in I guess spoiler alert, there's a scene in the last movie where when Snape dies and they cut to he's killed by Voldemort's snake.
Yeah.
And they cut to like outside the greenhouse or outside the boathouse, and there's like this pane of glass that Snape is lying against, and you just hear the snake like biting him, and his head's thudding against the glass, and it's like it's very like artistic and morbid and horrifying.
There's just so much to get into a Harry Potter movie that I feel like in Harry Potter Deathly Hallows Part 2, within that movie, like Ron, there's barely any time for like Ron and Hermione. Like there's just no time for anything. Like Ron is barely in that movie. Hermione's just like, oh, Ron had a great plan while we were off screen over there, you know, and you're just, because of the history, you're expected to like care about that.
Yeah, I know. Like there was definitely a lot of characters who you had grown to love, and then like it cuts away to Harry like running around Hogwarts, and it cuts back, and it's like this guy died, this guy died, this guy died, and they're just in the background. It's like whoa. I'm
not even sure if George or Fred, one of the twins the Weasley twins dies in the book. Did he die in the movie? I wasn't even sure.
I don't know.
I actually saw the movie with my parents, and someone was dead, and my dad was like, "Who is that?" And it was Remus, I believe. And I was like, "It's," and like they're still like panning up his body, and I was like, "Oh, that's his brother." And then they got to the top. I was like, "Never mind, that's not him yet." Never mind.
Okay. So you spoiled it for your dad.
I guess.
I'm sure he was devastated.
Yeah, but when he's like, "Who is this?" and it's Remus, like, how do you explain that? Like, all right, well, before this story even took place, Harry's dad was friends with these four. Like, how in the middle of the movie do I whisper the history of all this thing?
Had your parents seen the previous movies or read the books?
I think they had seen some of them. I don't think they read the books. I wanted you to talk about, before we forget, the marquee at the movie theater where you saw it.
Oh, yeah. Well, I saw it at Regal Union Square, and they had this weird LED marquee out front where they type in the names of the movies themselves. And
which you can always tell. You can always tell.
It's like really bad, like MS Paint style. And they had boiled in Harry Potter: The Deathly Hallows is a long name.
Yeah, they'll always boil it. Like you can always tell that they've like it's not totally official. Like it'll be like if it's Planet of the Apes, it'll be like Apes.
Yeah. Well, they had called it Harry Potter 7B on the marquee, which really kind of was the most unexciting title you could give it.
It's like filing it in a cabinet.
Yeah.
Harry Potter 7B.
Yeah, it sounds like you got it sounds like a tax document or something.
Really like just stripping all of the romance and the magic out of it.
I think that's going to happen more though because, you know, they're breaking the next Twilight into two
Hunger
parts.
Games is doing that too.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy...
It's like the math of movies is getting weird. It's like there's spin-offs and like 2 parts and it's going to be like fractals at some point.
The guy at Warner Brothers who was like looking at Harry Potter 7, he was like, what if we made this 2 movies? I hope that guy is insanely rich because I mean, I guess I don't hope he's... But, you know, honestly, it did serve Harry Potter. Like, there still wasn't really enough room in 2 movies to tell the complete story. I don't think it was a terrible artistic choice.
Yeah, and this...
Obviously, they did it to make an extra $1 billion. And, like, that single decision not only made them an extra $1 billion, but it made the Hunger Games and the Twilight. All these people are like, yes.
Yeah.
We'll split the books into 2 movies.
And it's so simple. It's like an idea like a janitor who was just, like, mopping by the door could have had as he was walking by. But, yeah, I mean, and it doesn't... It kind of made the movie better because that second movie, it's definitely the tightest of all the movies.
Yeah, I think Harry Potter 7 could have been like a season of a TV show. It's enormous.
Yes. I mean, that's the other thing. I think the show, like I said, it was kind of like remind me of Battlestar a little bit with the sort of rallying of the troops at the end. Mm-hmm. But, you know, it had that power that like TV has now of just like that movies, even really good movies are great. And, you know, but the one thing they can't do is like you can't spend 10 years of your life with these characters, you know, and then...
Right. So you said you had 2 favorite movies. One was Harry Potter. What's the other?
I think it was this weekend's Rise of the Planet of the Apes,
which Pat and I just saw hours before recording it. So I was excited about that too. I think that was my favorite movie of the summer.
And I'm trying to be like you just said, we just saw it.
So
we're real excited.
Yeah.
But I think I could objectively say like it was one of the best movies of the summer.
The movie does not star James Franco. He's first in the credits.
Caesar's the star of the movie.
Yeah, Caesar's calling the shots there.
Yeah.
And I described the movie as so good it made the woman next to me shut up for a second during like the big moments of the movie. She was speechless.
Yeah, I mean, do you want to give plot points of this movie away, or is
it's weird with Planet of the Apes because first of all the movie's called Rise of the Planet of the Apes,
and it's set on Earth,
right? And everyone knows the twist from the Planet of the Apes, and additionally, all of the marketing material has the apes storming San Francisco, which is, I think, somewhat obviously towards the end of the movie, let's say. And I was commenting actually right after the movie how much more exciting, which I did like the movie a lot, but if I had never seen the commercials and seen none of the footage, I had no idea the scale this was going to evolve to. I think it would have been even better. Even still, even knowing the general direction it was going, I think one of the reasons I liked, and I imagine one of the reasons you liked it as well, was you never really knew where it was going, just scene by scene. Even though you do know where it's going. The movie opens, the very first thing in the movie is the title, Rise of the Planet of the Apes. That's like second one of the movie. So they're telling you, here's what's going to happen. Yeah. But how you get there is not totally expected, and that's exciting. I think what surprised me was, like you said, how much it doesn't star James Franco. It's really just about these... There are like long stretches of scenes with no dialogue except ape grunting and sign language, and it works. Stuff. And it works. It like could have been a disaster, but it totally works. No, I mean, there was a chuckling in the theater, but it was like a good-natured chuckling. Like people were like genuinely applauding when Caesar was triumphing in one way. You get into Caesar's story, like when Caesar starts fucking shit up, and I guess that's you know Caesar's gonna start fucking shit up. But like you're so invested in it that like. it's exciting when he does it. It really was.
Yeah.
So Caesar is played by Andy Serkis, and it's a motion capture thing. Andy Serkis is like, I guess maybe the only person on Earth who does this, as far as I can tell.
He's got that. He's got that market corner. Who's the second best? Who's your second favorite motion capture actor?
Right. He did it. He was King Kong, and also in Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings. Of course, he was Gollum, where he kind of invented and like called people's attention to this.
Yeah.
And watching the movie, I felt excited for him because I think he will go. There's a lot of debate about, especially after Return of the King, like, can this be nominated for an Oscar? And I think that'll probably simmer for a while, and it will eventually come around to it. And like, it's like gay marriage. Like, eventually everyone will catch up with the times and recognize.
Yeah.
It's exactly like gay marriage. I want to equate that. It's that important of a social.
Well, it's more important, yeah.
Yeah, but I think he will be recognized in some amount of time for looking back, for pioneering this whole new art form. What he did as Gollum and what he did in this movie is not going away. It's obviously totally awesome.
Yeah, this one stands out. I mean, the Gollum, his performance as Gollum, I guess King Kong was kind of a lead performance, but not... This movie, like we said, he's the star of the movie. It's like kind of the first like mocap star of a movie, maybe that isn't in that Robert Zemeckis
like the Christmas Carol or
yeah
you know what, he might be like Gollum, and Gollum's obviously a major character in Lord of the Rings, but he's not the star of the movie.
So they really had to rely on like it not being, they had to, at some point the people making Rise of the Planet of the Apes had to make this leap that like, okay, like we're gonna have a dude playing a monkey, and this movie will not work unless like the audience is genuinely like emotionally tearing up over his predicament, and it works.
The movie had a lot to overcome too, because how skeptical are you of that second reboot in 10 years?
Yes, yeah.
But you know what, the game, it's interesting. Planet of the Apes, the Tim Burton one, which is not that long ago, the game has changed since then. Like, obviously the technology has advanced to a point and that allowed them to tell the story in a completely different way.
Well, the problem with that one was the makeup in the Tim Burton was awesome. The problem was technology wasn't the problem. Like,
yeah, that movie had a lot of problems beyond that, but they couldn't have done this. This was not
advancements in storytelling technology has changed.
I hate that Planet of the Apes.
We were talking about it. I don't think I dislike it as much as you do. I know the ending.
I resent the ending. I think it's insulting. I
think what happened there was like, when Tim Burton made that, obviously the original Planet of the Apes, I think we've already addressed this spoiler, and it's not even a spoiler anymore because this new movie essentially is all about it, but like the Planet of the Apes is Earth, and it's like one of the most famous twist endings of all time. And so I think maybe Tim Burton felt like he had to pay homage to like every important beat of Planet of the Apes, including the twist ending, but he couldn't do the same one.
Right.
And so he's like, what'll mine be?
The new Planet of the Apes did remind me a lot of a movie we already mentioned that you and I both loved last year.
You mean the new Rise of the Planet of the Apes, right?
Yes. Yeah. The newest Rise of the Planet of the Apes, the new one, reminded me a lot of a movie we already mentioned that you and I both really enjoyed, which was Splice. Mm-hmm. Because the first act of both this and Splice are kind of about taking this lab experiment home and playing God and hiding it from the corporation, and the experiment grows and matures and becomes like a person and part of the family. And the movies then diverge. They're not that redundant, but that first act was very reminiscent of Splice, I thought.
The movie was kind of the one thing about the movie, I guess.
By the way, Splice is incredible. Also go see Splice if you haven't seen Splice.
Yeah, definitely. Like, and there's like a lot of questions of like in both movies about like
testing
lab experiments as like becoming like surrogate children to you, because James Franco, and that's what caught us off. That's when I was like, okay, this movie's like giving me something different here. Like he's raising the monkey. They jumped to 5 years later, and like Caesar's just living with John Lithgow and James Franco.
Both movies feature incredibly unreasonable boards of genetic companies who are like developing medicines where like one thing goes wrong and they're like, we don't care what incredible things have already happened. We're shutting it down forever and never want to hear anything else about it.
Yeah.
Because of this one high stakes demonstration that goes wrong in both Splice and Planet of the Apes.
The movie also kind of had like a it was very cavalier about like monkey ownership laws, because the first act of the movie, like even more, James Franco like owns Caesar as a pet, and it's kind of a secret but not really, and then like they have to, it's very unclear like what the legality of what he's doing is, like in terms of raising this monkey.
And who knows?
It proposes, like, according to this movie, like it's totally legal to own a chimpanzee in in San Francisco.
I think that was my favorite movie this summer because what I look for when I see a movie is something that I haven't seen before. And there were elements in that movie, like there were some shots of Caesar just reacting to things where I was like, this is cool, this is something new. And I don't know that any other movie this summer at all gave that to me. There was no... Usually,
you mean no other movie had a gorilla riding a horse with a spear?
Yeah, not even a little bit. Usually, you can at least rely on one Pixar movie. We didn't have that this summer. Let's just not talk about that.
Oh yeah, maybe we should. I do. Wait, that Cars 2 came out this summer, right?
Yeah.
We got it. I feel like I have you. Not to turn this interview around, but I have you in the hot seat here.
I got my Cars 2 thoughts out, and I think it's at the beginning of the Scott episode I talked about. I just had to get it off my chest, you know. And
you just like wait? Was it a dialogue, or did you just like?
It was me. I just like opened the show with 10 minutes of me talking about Cars 2.
All right, okay.
So
all right. So you don't want to talk about it?
I just don't want to talk about Cars 2 anymore. I don't even do that. It was like I haven't totally figured out how to open the show. This is the first one I think that I introduced with the guest here next to me because I wasn't doing the intro as like this whole other thing. But if you look back at the history of I am thinking to be the 7th episode of this show. The first 6, there's like maybe 1 or 2 minutes at the top of each show about something else. The Cars 2 one is like 8 minutes of me just being like, and another thing.
It's just basically a Sam Kinison rant about Cars 2.
Yeah, so usually it's like, what's the best movie of the summer? Besides the Pixar movie? That's the question I have to ask myself.
Sure.
This summer it's out. Like, what do you want to know about Cars 2?
Well, it was not good,
so
right?
bad.
And I guess you listening at home, Jeff is like the biggest Pixar fan in the world. Like I think Gabrus pointed out. I'm in Jeff's apartment right now, and Gabrus is also pointing out certain things in here, but there's like literally a shelf filled with Pixar stuff.
I went through an itemized list in the other episode.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, so Jeff's
is basically like a 9-year-old's bedroom.
Jeff is a huge Pixar fan, biggest one I know, and so
which is weird because everyone. I think I said this too then, but like everyone likes Pixar movies.
True.
Like, so what do you have to do to be a fan above those people?
Yeah.
That's the question I ask myself every day.
I mean, own a shelf like the one I'm looking at right now, I guess is the answer.
Yeah, there is one shelf that is entirely devoted to. There's a handful of Simpsons toys, but the rest is all Incredible miniatures.
Let me ask you this. I'll ask you just one question about Cars 2, then, if you want, we don't have to talk about it anymore if you don't want ever again. Because I'm kind of genuinely curious about this. Even more than disappointed, I'm very confused how this movie came to exist, because it wasn't like a gradual downfall. There's no Toy Story 3 is arguably their best movie ever.
Yeah.
And it seems so sudden and abrupt. What do you think happened? You know,
I don't know.
Like they're not lazy. They're not just trying.
Yeah, they obviously know what they're doing.
Yeah,
I mean, you don't make like 11 great movies in a row, but like not even 11 great movies. 11 movies like they made in a row by accident.
So, to what do you attribute the change in?
I don't totally know. I guess I mean, it's hard to say without being there. Obviously, something went wrong, and it's hard to speculate what. If I had to guess, I'd say this is probably one of the first, and I'm guessing. I could probably look this up if I was like, I'm sure there's someone who's like the next level up from me in Pixar fandom. This is probably one of the first movies I think that they started developing since being purchased by Disney, and I hope that's not it because that would bode poorly for the future.
Sure, yeah.
But that certainly seems like a potential culprit. I mean, everyone's blaming the merchandising on it. I heard someone explain though that John Lasseter, who directed this, but also is like one of the founders of, one of the core people at Pixar, and he also did Toy Story, like the first one. And someone explained to me that he loves making toys, and not in the good kind of way, not in he loves making money off the toys. He genuinely enjoys making characters who will be toys, and he really just unleashed on that for Cars 2. And if you watch that movie, it's like the poster for that movie is like a Toys R Us flyer. There's like a flying car, and then there's like Mater with a rocket pack. It's so bad.
And you had mentioned like their last couple of movies are not especially toy conducive.
Up as stars like an old person and an 8-year-old fat kid.
No.
So usually you have the Pixar movie. Get back on track. Usually you have the Pixar movie and at least one other good movie, like say Inception, or just like something else that really breaks the mold. And this summer I felt like everything was so safe. Even the movies I liked, I liked Thor. I liked XMen a lot. I didn't even hate Transformers 3, but talk about movies that you can't spoil. There's nothing I can say about Transformers 3 that'll spoil it for you. There's just because there's nothing in it. There's nothing to it.
We should talk about Transformers.
All right, so we saw Transformers 3.
Yeah.
the worst part
together. Jeff and I saw this too. We didn't see every movie together. We saw a lot of them together, but not all of them.
The worst part of Transformers 3 was, and there's a few candidates, and it's not as bad as Transformers 2, and it's not as bad as some other movies I saw this summer, like Green Lantern. And
should we talk about that's another one we like really chew? If you watch an old Nerd Alert, we kind of chew all the meat off that movie. But Transformers,
the worst part was the comedy. There's this one scene where Shia LaBeouf, who can't get a job, and he's going through the job interview process, and it's like this, this is like classic bad comedy. Like it's a job interview montage where he's messing up all the different job interviews.
Yeah.
And I wanted to take Shia LaBeouf and Michael Bay and bring them to our theater, because even most of the bad jokes in that movie get a laugh. Like Ken Jeong, who's very funny, he's not. These aren't great jokes. Or Alan Tudyk, these are like talented actors, like really selling bad jokes, and they get laughs in the theater because it's such a general audience.
At least acknowledgement that a joke has been told.
Yeah, like a few people laugh. But this job interview montage was all Shia LaBeouf doing, carrying all the water there.
Yeah.
Audience is just silent. 8-year-old boys not even amused by what's going on.
Yeah.
And I wanted to take them there and show them like just how badly they were bombing. And there's so much of that. It's so overstuffed. It's like a Bollywood movie. It's got like comedy and romance and action.
I think the action movies, they need to have comedy, and I think Die Hard made that amazing discovery. Like if you make some jokes in there in an action movie, it's awesome. And Transformers, it's just, they've gone too far with it. Every character in it, and part 2 had this problem as well, and we talked about this, but every character is comic relief. So John Turturro's comic relief, but then his assistant is his comic relief, you know? John Malkovich is in it. Remember that?
Yeah, you could cut John Malkovich's scenes out of the movie without touching another second of the film, and it would still make just.
You're right. Yeah. I tried to. I was talking to a friend about it who hadn't seen the movie, and I was trying to explain why I didn't like it. I almost feel bad. I'm chewing into this movie so badly, but it wasn't that good. But I was trying to explain why I didn't like it, and there's all these ridiculous characters in it and stuff. You know, I think I'm usually not to brag, but I can verbalize in a nice, nuanced, specific way why I like or dislike a movie. But as I was talking, I couldn't get it any more nuanced and basically it was long and stupid.
It's so long. It's 2.5 hours long, which is insane. It's so. I remember right before the movie started, you were like, "Do you know how long this is?" And I was like, "It's 2.5 hours," and lights go down.
Yeah.
Oh my god, what are we getting into? We walked out of that movie, and I think the part that you and I liked the most was the cameo from Buzz Aldrin.
Oh my god, that was so funny.
Because they're in NASA or something, and Buzz Aldrin.
We know that he was in the movie.
Yeah,
but we thought it'd be a quick interview footage from MTV News or something with Buzz Aldrin on a red carpet, really quick cameo.
But Buzz gets to hang out with Optimus. There's a scene where Buzz is looking at obviously nothing, but he's supposed to be impressed by Optimus.
And he has lines. He has to say he's the Decepticons are coming.
Yeah,
and he's so old.
And he sells out the moon mission too. He's like, when we landed on the moon, that was a front. We were covering to explore a giant Decepticon head.
Yeah.
And then Optimus, who is so furious at NASA in the movie, and Optimus is like, "You lied to us, NASA. We can't trust humanity anymore." But then he meets Buzz Aldrin. Buzz Aldrin's like, "It's great to meet you, Optimus." And Optimus is like,
"The honor is mine, sir.
You were the real Transformer, Buzz."
Yeah, exactly. It's just gotta pay tribute to him.
I thought the worst part of that movie was the ending. God, this is the lightest spoiler alert I could possibly enforce on a movie. There's not a single plot point I could possibly tell you.
I'm wondering what you're gonna say.
But at the end, there's this part where Megatron finally attacks Optimus, and Megatron's not the primary antagonist in this. I think that he sort of gets wrapped up in the ending. I think, because I don't even remember.
I don't know.
But whatever.
The movie's so. Shia LaBeouf, you can't even say who the main character in that movie is, because it's not Shia LaBeouf. He's in the first half of the movie. He's looking for a job, literally.
Yeah. And then, but at the end of the movie, for some reason, Megatron attacks Optimus, and Optimus, who's already dealt with the primary bad guy in the movie, just it's not even a big fight scene, just rips Megatron's head out. Spine still attached, Sub-Zero style. And it's why did you do that before? They've had these 2 other movies of epic battles, and in this one he's just nah, I got this. Just turns around and just rips his head right out of this.
And then the movie ends. That's the last thing the ending is really anticlimactic.
I didn't hate it as much as Transformers 2, and I don't know why. It made a little more sense in that there was at least it was like an A to B plot. Like at any point, even though the movie didn't make sense, I could say like what someone was doing. Whereas Transformers 2 is just such a hot mess that you can't even like, describe what a character wants to do.
There's one or two sequences of like that are pretty imaginative. There's a scene where there's a snake-like thing, which is very unclear.
I thought was a tail of another thing, but I think maybe was his own guy, and I'm still not sure.
But they're running up and down a skyscraper, and it's totally ridiculous. But it was one of the. I think it was cool because it was like different, and they were thinking about what some cool things they could do. But generally, it was very hard to really get into. Should we talk about Green Lantern again, or
let's get into Green Lantern? I think Green Lantern was the worst movie I saw this summer. For
Definitely,
sure.
I agree.
Really hated Green Lantern. I'm currently, as we're recording, and I think this came up when we talked about Green Lantern last time. I'm drinking. I am a classic Green Lantern fan. I loved Green Lantern growing up. And I'm drinking out of a Hal Jordan pint glass. We got these at Comic-Con. There's this dude that sells like awesome 80s style comic pint glasses. And I saw him like 2 years ago and I was like, those are sweet. And then I saw him again the next year and I was like, this year I'm getting them.
How much were they? How much was that?
It was like $7 or $8. It was like, it wasn't cheap, but like I liked it a lot. And
it never occurs to me to buy a themed pint glass of anything.
Well, I also have I also bought, those Bluth Company pint glass.
It's right there.
Yeah, it's also laying out. No one's drinking out of this. It's just been on the table for a day or two.
It's filled with whiskey.
But it's this one came. I'm maybe more proud of this than anything in my life. I watched Arrested Development when it was on the air, and that
would have been very expensive because you buy like from the Fox store.
And I spent like $30 or like like 10 on shipping to get 2 of these because the show was going off the air, and I was just like, if I don't get this, I'll always regret it. So it's a Bluth Company pint glass. And it wasn't clear at that point that everyone in the world was eventually going to come around and loving Arrested Development. So I was like, I just got to buy this now. So anyway, this guy's got tons of comic book characters at his Comic-Con pint glass shop. And I'm looking through all of them. This is like a big decision for me. And I got 2. I got Aquaman because I thought it'd be cool when there was beer behind him and it looked like Aquaman was swimming in beer.
Sure.
And also it's like 80s Aquaman, with like that orange leaf or that orange kind of sweater and like
he's definitely like one of the more vivid of the superheroes.
And then I got this Green Lantern one, and I believe there was Alan Scott and Hal Jordan. I was like, no, Hal Jordan's my dude. I got to get Hal Jordan. This pint glass is even less cool now than when I bought it. And it was never cool. But now I'm like embarrassed to own a Hal Jordan.
You have to explain to people that you bought that.
I bought it before this movie came out. And when we saw it, we were like, there's no way they're going to make another one of these. Like, clearly, lesson learned. All right,
that still is true, right?
No, they're like, no, the next one's going to be darker. We were just starting to set up the story. Oh, God. I feel like
we're both like speechless.
Yeah, we got a lot of it out before. And there was this element. We talked about this in the other one. I feel like you just go there and watch how much we hated Green Lantern.
It's the Nerd Alert episode.
What do we call? Oh, worst superhero movie ever, which may be true.
I think Jeff and I are looking at each other. I think we just mutually agreed we don't want to talk about this movie anymore. It was so exhausting.
But here's what I think is interesting about the DC Comics approach to movies versus the Marvel approach to movies. I think maybe you came up with this theory. The DC movies are swinging harder. Mm-hmm. The Marvel movies are all made in this very cookie cutter factory way where you pretty much can't go wrong. Like Thor, Captain America, they're all good but not too good. They're very safe. They get all the pieces you want and they're good. They're good movies. But the DC way of making it is no, we're gonna get a little crazy on this one. And sometimes that pans out and you get a Dark Knight, and then sometimes you get a Green Lantern.
It's crazy to imagine when you're talking about the DC pantheon of movies, and it's yes, all the you can't even just to utter the Dark Knight and Green Lantern movies in the same sentence sounds absurd, But
I think Green Lantern was trying to do something different, and I think it failed really, really badly. I really can't say how little I enjoyed it. Don't even watch it on an airplane. Just do a Sudoku or something.
Yeah.
Before we saw Planet of the Apes, I thought my main thing, I was going to say my award, my Jeff Rubin's summer movie award was going to go to Marvel, who I think this is crazy that they did this and got away with it. They made 3 movies this summer. That's pretty...
It was
X-Men, Thor, and Captain America. That's pretty crazy. 3 movies in one summer.
And I think generally, they all received either positive or mixed reviews.
Yeah, I liked Thor, and Thor did pretty well. And I liked X-Men even more. I thought X-Men was it had a little bit of something different in it, even though it was X-Men, which have been done 100 times already. Still took a little bit of a different approach. Captain America, I was a little lukewarm on. And you saw them all but Captain America, right?
Yeah, Captain America is the one I think I haven't... I think the only two we had, I don't know if you want to call it the ones we haven't seen, but are I haven't seen Captain America, and neither of us have seen Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah, neither of us saw...
Caribbean 4.
And I wanted to see Pirates of the Caribbean 4 because I love Ian McShane. Like, I like Pirates of the Caribbean 1 a whole lot.
Yeah.
I like it enough that I even sat through 2 and 3. And even 2 and 3, which I don't like, there are parts of it I like. Like I like Octopus Dude, and there's just some cool elements of it. And then I was like, they were like Ian McShane is Blackbeard, Ian McShane who's Swearingen on Deadwood, and I was like, all right, that's what I needed. I'm in.
They're like the rare movies where like the budget, the excess of budget is like a good thing because they use it well. Like they're very visual movies.
Yeah.
But like the Octopus Man Davy Jones, I guess, is awesome.
But somehow I just couldn't get my shit together to go see Pirates of the Caribbean 4. And honestly, I don't think anyone I know, like, I didn't hear a single thing about it. It made money. Someone went and saw it, and I don't know, maybe they'll make a 5th one.
Well, it's the 4th in a franchise, and that's always like...
That's an odd number.
That's interesting, because at that point, you're committing... Because three is a nice, solid trilogy. You could stop there.
Yeah, especially in Pirates of the Caribbean, where they made 2 and 3 at once.
Yeah. At 4, you're just saying like, okay, we're gonna like when you make a 4, you're also like kind of unofficially committing to making an indefinite number of them. You know, so you're just kind of like, all right, we're gonna make this leap.
But I want to get so we didn't see that one, but to get back to the Marvel movies, I didn't like Captain America, but I didn't hate it. Like Captain America at least had this basic competency that Green Lantern lacked.
Yeah,
like it was a movie that it was not my favorite. It was a lot of things you'd seen done before, but. There were some interesting moments, like Red Skull has a cool sci-fi airplane. Like, there's some cool, like, 40s spaceships type stuff that I like.
Well, yeah, a lot of that and X-Men, you get a couple of, like, those are retro conning history for superhero stuff. And Watchmen did that as well. Yeah,
but Watchmen does it, like, almost like an alternate universe. Like, it's, like, Watchmen's almost like, here's how we're different than the rest of the world. But Marvel made 3 movies this summer, and 2 of them were period pieces. One in the X-Men. I liked X-Men a lot. I'd never seen, and I guess they've done it in comics recently, I was not familiar with, like, I know Magneto and Professor X had a history, but I had never seen it really depicted in the era when I was actively reading X-Men comics or in the X-Men animated series or, in any other movies. And I thought it was a cool take for it.
Yeah.
I like the part of that movie where they were like, we're going to stop the movie for a second and explain what the Cuban Missile Crisis is. Just catch everyone up to speed.
That's funny.
Also, I loved...
and Transformers also kind of retcons history, too. There's, like, the beginning of Transformers shows, like...
Oh, I like the first 10 minutes of Transformers. When it was the first 10 minutes is, like...
Yeah. They Robert Zemeckis JFK to, like, actually have him there and some guy dubbing his voice being like... we need to get these Decepticons off the moon. That's probably worth seeing the movie for.
I like the first 10 minutes of that.
A lot of famous American historical figures talking about robots.
Here's something, a fun little pattern in the movies this summer, and it's something else I love to bring up on the show, Friday Night Lights. Landry's dad from Friday Night Lights, who's like the cop on Friday. He's a cop on Friday Night Lights. He's mostly Landry's dad, though.
Yeah.
Is in both Transformers and X-Men. And in both movies, he plays, like, the general that is in the war room.
Right. He has that look.
Yeah, he has that just very official look.
Yeah, Jeff yelled that out in the theater to everyone.
I was so excited.
Yeah.
Especially during Transformers.
He played the general in Transformers?
Yeah, he's just, like, in the war room. I don't even remember why they were
Those movies, I mean, Transformers is just such a... like an orgy of random actors and stuff because they can afford anyone they want for any role. There's so much money involved.
People who would star in other movies like John Malkovich or Ken Jeong are like
John Malkovich
totally taking these like tertiary roles in the movie.
And it wasn't even like a John Malkovich role. The thing about John Malkovich's role, it's
more than cameo.
It's more than a cameo, but it's less than anything else. So it's like it's a weird quasi. He's like invented a new level of character somewhere between cameo and like supporting actor.
And I love when you get
it's like 17 minutes of screen time.
I love when a movie has that much money, and you kind of see that in Cowboys and Aliens too, where they like have so much money they're like over hiring for roles. Sam Rockwell, who has nothing to do. Sam Rockwell is such a fantastic actor and has just nothing to do. He's like this role that really doesn't ask a lot of him, and like it seems so easy for him. And you see that with Malkovich in Transformers, and a little bit, even though I like the movie, with Brian Cox who just has to be like, he doesn't have much of a character, he's just like the shithead zookeeper kind of.
Oh yeah. Oh, we should also mention who kind of interesting in Rise of the Planet of the Apes, the sort of evil like monkey zookeeper guy. That's Brian.
Oh yeah.
Brian, the guy who like actually takes care of the monkeys but doesn't. He's cruel to them. Is Tom Felton,
who's Draco in Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Fully embracing that he's going to be typecast as like, he's got like the bully and Karate Kid role where he's like 10% meaner than an actual human being would be. Like he just like hits the monkey and he's like, hey, stupid monkey.
Yeah, I didn't recognize him until like, I think we both kind of recognized at the same time. Like he has like he gives like a mean smiling snarl to the monkey, and like I was like, we're like, I know that snarl. That's Draco.
It's a cool movie. Like this is like the science. Not all good movies have to do this, but like there's no real good guys or bad guys. You know, there's a lot of complicated gray area. Like Caesar's not really a bad guy, even though he leads a rebellion against humans, and James Franco's not really a bad guy, even though he causes this virus that may end humanity. So that's like very gray and interesting. Draco, though, he's a shithead.
And I think that the cool thing about his presence in the movie, or the interesting thing, and this kind of ties to Harry Potter, the last Harry Potter, another summer movie, which we already talked about, is I'm really interested in seeing what the cast of Harry Potter, what are their next movies going to be. Like, this is a very important... That was his first little chess move in his like in the complex world of his post-Harry Potter career.
What did you think of Cowboys and Aliens, by the way?
I didn't think it was very good.
I didn't either.
It was not as bad as Transformers or Green Lantern. I thought it was not terrible, but just didn't like. It never really became more. It wasn't weird enough for a movie that was supposed to be about cowboys and aliens. It wasn't a great Western or a great sci-fi movie. You know?
No, it lacked both paths of it. I thought Harrison Ford. You can't be a nerd and knock Harrison Ford too hard. You know, he's like he's in the pantheon. But I a little bit was like, if Harrison Ford's not interested in being in movies, I don't know if I need to see it.
yeah, maybe halfway at least.
Yeah.
At first I didn't like it. I've kind of cooled. I've kind of warmed up to it a little bit more. It was definitely like it was watchable.
But that's my thing about movies, and that's how I'd condemn all of the summer movies this year, with maybe the exception of Planet of the Apes. Is like, it's not enough to not be bad. Like, I'm spending time watching the movie. I want it to be good. And by not being not very good is just as bad as bad. It's, like, still bad. You know, it's, like, not... Cowboys and Aliens isn't terrible like Green Lantern.
Yeah.
I guess I told you not to watch Green Lantern on a plane. If you're on a plane and you have nothing to do but Cowboys and Aliens, like, you could do worse. You could see Green Lantern, for instance.
Yeah.
But like that's still like a failure in my opinion. Like they shouldn't be. I feel like they all aim that low to be like They all aim to be just not the worst movie of the summer, and they all succeeded in that except Green Lantern. But it's still not very exciting. There was nothing that great.
And you know, Cowboys and Aliens came out the same weekend as Attack the Block. At least in the theater I saw it in, Attack the Block, and they're kind of similar. Like it's an interesting thing because they kind of start from similar places of like. Let's mix these two disparate aliens in a very disparate environment you don't normally associate with aliens, like East London or the Wild West. And it's a cool example of like how one just kind of doesn't do too much with it, and this other one just makes this totally awesome movie out of it.
And the one that may end up more well remembered is the one that cost probably 10% as much.
Yeah.
Or less.
I think you're right. You're definitely right though. Like you mentioned no Inception this summer, and like it does seem like even I love Rise of the Planet of the Apes. I thought it was great.
And Dark Knight was the summer before that, or was it? Yeah, Dark Knight was the summer before that.
Yeah, there wasn't one that was just like all Christopher Nolan.
Yeah.
Super 8. Super 8 was a movie I liked.
Oh, I didn't love Super 8.
Yeah, we should talk about this.
On that one, yeah.
Because we've agreed most of the summer. I think that's the only one we disagree on.
All right, so Super 8 is a movie that at least warrants me saying I'm about to talk about the ending. So I guess...
Oh, for sure, okay.
This is Future Jeff going back to drop a quick warning in because Pat and I are about to discuss the ending of Super 8. So if you haven't seen the movie yet and you're just waiting till TBS inevitably reruns it 10 times a day for all of eternity, you should skip ahead about 2 minutes. And I'm just gonna wait a second while everyone figures out how the fast forward part of their iPod works. You know, you gotta get it out, you gotta fast forward. All right, well, if they haven't gotten it by now, they deserve to have the ending of Super 8 spoiled. Back to the show.
A reason Inception is great. One of the reasons, even before you even see the movie, is like, or Avatar, it's like it's an original script, same writer director, and those are and with that much money behind it, that's so rare. So whenever that happens, it's like I'm so into it.
Like at the end, the alien picks up the main character, Sam, I think, and because the alien, as we learned from Mayor Royce from The Wire, can touch people and sense where they've been in their history, and he touches the kid, and he's like, oh, I see, not all humans are bad. But like, is the sheriff he just ate a minute ago a total piece of shit and like deserved to get eaten? He was eating tons of other people, and this felt like it was very like contrived. I thought how in the end Sam's beauty stopped the alien's rampage, but the alien had already eaten all these other people who seemed perfectly nice to me.
I guess that didn't bother. I'm like that to me. That's just like. That's it's unfortunate that alien ate them, but like the alien was tortured when he was in Area 51, which I believe is one of the reasons he was so mean. And I don't mind it sometimes in movies are kind of like a little edgy, you know. And one of the reasons that I like Attack the Block is that like kids are in like and I like Super 8, but Attack the Block goes even farther. Is that like they put kids in danger and people get eaten. And one of my complaints about Rise of the Planet of the Apes is it was very bloodless. There was not. Yeah. It was very It was very light PG-13.
Yeah. Caesar's agenda is to 1, take over the world, and 2, keep the film under an R rating.
It kind of it makes Rise of the Planet of the Apes great, but it also shows why so many other action movies are so simple, because a lot of the movies told in like ape grunts, but they can convey the same plot points as a dialogue action movie. Like there's a gorilla about to kill one of the humans, and then Caesar just like turns to him and he's like, ugh. And I've seen so many blockbuster action movies. I know exactly. Like, this is the part where he tells them we're not killing any innocent people.
Another movie that stood out to me as Bloodless, which I think is 2 summers ago now, was Wolverine. Because I played the Wolverine Origins video game, the game based on the movie, which is actually a pretty solid game. Movie games are very dicey to get into, but the Wolverine one's actually pretty solid, and it's very violent. There's like a lot of Wolverine stabbing people, and when Wolverine gets like destroyed, you can like see through his body while he's healing. Cool. And there's some really cool like cutscenes in that game, which is something rare you'd say about games. But a lot of cool cutscenes of just Wolverine like stabbing people in the face, and you're like, but the movie, it's always like you go down his arm, and then it like shing, and you just hear it, and it stops right before you actually see it.
Oh, yeah.
And it made you realize, like, yeah, I guess a movie about a guy with knives for hands should be pretty violent. Just like Planet of the Apes. Like, a movie about a gorilla on the loose in San Francisco should have some people being pounded into pulp.
Totally. Because like every 6 months, and these are terrible stories, not to make light of it, but, you know, you hear a story about a chimpanzee, like, just mauling someone horrifically. And, you know, chimpanzees are deadly people.
I pulled up a list of the movies from last summer, and I am seeing this trend of this summer more, maybe the average was better, but no one really excelled. Because listen to what came out last summer. Iron Man 2. That I thought, I did not like Iron Man. Like, I remember a few weeks after Iron Man 2 being like, I can't remember what happens in that movie. And a year later, I challenge you to describe the plot of Iron Man 2. Like, try to remember anything that happened in that film.
I saw it. It's on Netflix Instant Watch now, and I haven't like rewatched it, and that is kind of like a barometer of like how much a movie sticks, because like you'll never be in a position where it's easier to watch Iron Man 2 than like it's right there, and just click the blue button and you're watching it, and I was like,
But listen to what else came out this summer.
Yeah, go for it.
Last summer, some really bad movies, but at least maybe interestingly bad. Like at least. Jonah Hex, terrible.
Oh yeah,
Did you see Jonah Hex?
Yeah, I saw it against your warnings because the Neville Dean Taylor team. The Crank movie fame. They're awesome. Yeah, pretty.
Jonah Hex, maybe even worse than Green Lantern, I'd say.
Another
DC Comics, by the way.
Really?
Yeah. Well, Jonah Hex is maybe a Vertigo thing. I forget how exactly they classified it.
I don't know.
Anyway, there's also Prince of Persia. Probably, Pat and I have a lot of experience with video game movies. One of the worst video game movies. One of the worst. Oh, this is great. I actually want to talk about this. I've always had this, there's this funny thing I want to tell people that have never seen Prince of Persia. And this is a little off topic because when I was last summer. The funniest part of Prince of Persia is there's this really, really overt, heavy-handed anti-George Bush message in the movie because the prince has an advisor played by Ben Kingsley, who I would say is slumming it if he wasn't also in Blood Rain. Like, what is
Jeff's read so much into this movie. And you can't see there's scribblings all over his wall about George Bush in the movie.
Listen to what happens. It's definitely like very overt. So Ben Kingsley's the advisor, and he's like, we have to go raid this magical city. because he like unloads. He's like, we uncovered our spies uncovered they have all these iron tipped arrows. It means they're ready to attack. So and they like go out. So they raid the magical city, and then like they get there, and it turns out it was like actually they didn't want to invade anyone. They were peaceful, and then through the course of the film, Jake Gyllenhaal, the prince, learns that the vizier is evil, and he falsified that they had the iron-tipped arrows, and he like made up that they were going to attack as a pretense to invade the city and get all of their magic sand, oil. And that's what the movie's about. It's very like I don't know, like.
And by design, you think it was by design?
Yes, I think so. Is that? Yeah. Am I reading too much into that? That seems pretty intentional.
No, I guess the guys that wrote that movie, like they probably have opinions about. I mean, 300 had a pro-Bush agenda, which is 300 before. What was that before the invasion? I think it was around the invasion of Iraq. It was like 03 or whatever. There's a whole invasion of Iraq thing going on in that movie because like he's. The Senate, the Spartans, the brave heroes, need to go fight like the Easterners. They need to defend their homeland. But the Senate
they won't let them
do it. So they have to like go around. They have to like do it covertly. They have to find a way around it. The Senate's very evil.
But the other movies last summer, just the worst. The A-Team, terrible movie. Mm-hmm. Clash of the Titans was bad. I guess maybe why do we go see so many summer movies? There's so many bad ones.
A lot of like so many. Like Jonah Hex, Clash of the Titans, Cowboys and Aliens, all these weird, like steampunky, awkward movies. Just weirdness. A lot of weirdness.
What mistakes do you think we're going to be making in the future, looking ahead? Like, what are the movies we're going to be trying to stay positive about next summer?
I mean, I've only seen trailers and stuff for movies. And I don't even know how many of them are coming out in the summer versus but you know, like.
Well, there's Spider-Man is next summer. That looks really bad.
Yeah, I mean. Superhero comic book movies in general, I don't get as excited about them as other people. You know, like I tend to like them when they do something different. Like, I mean, The Dark Knight's just like awesome because it's so much deeper and like different than other ones. And then the XMen movie I was kind of into because they tried making it in the '60s and there was all this like Nazi hunting backstory, which was something you don't normally see in a movie. But like even the Avengers, I like Joss Whedon, but.
Yeah, Joss Whedon's buying me a lot on the Avengers movie.
You had seen the trailer and you were pretty excited about it,
because there's a trailer at the end, like the post-credit scene for Captain America. Because well, first of all, by the way, so Marvel has trained you when you go see a Marvel movie that there should be a post-credit scene.
Yeah.
And there wasn't one at the end of X-Men. And were you there when I saw that?
No.
So I insisted we sit around at the end of X-Men, and my friends were like, is there something after the credits? I was like, oh, trust me, there's going to be something after the credits. And like, we were not the only people in the movie, because Marvel... They put some good stuff after the credits, you know? There's been, like
important, like, plot points.
At the end of X-Men, there was nothing. And there was, like, an audible, like, really dropping the ball there, I felt like. But at the end of Captain America, which was the last of the 3 Marvel movies that came out this summer, they had an Avengers trailer. And, like, I said to the person I saw it was Gabrus, actually. I was like, I just want to see, like, Robert Downey Jr. high-five Thor. And, like, I'm going to be set. And that was in there. He like slaps him on the back, and he's like, "I don't know about this guy." And I was like, I'm seeing this movie." And I probably would be less excited about it if it wasn't Joss Whedon. But Joss Whedon, in my book, and I'm not saying this to pander to a nerd audience, Joss Whedon is a perfect track record. Even Dollhouse, which was completely atrocious in the first season and really, really bad. The second season, after it got canceled, something interesting happened there where like. Yeah. He had like this 5 or 6 year plan, and then it got canceled. And he put like 5 years worth of ideas into like 8 episodes, and the ending of the show is incredible. It's really cool. So I've never seen anything from Joss Whedon that doesn't have some redeeming quality to it, if not being outright fantastic. So I'm looking forward to that movie.
There's also the two movies, just 2 movies I know that are coming out in terms of big budget movies are John Carter of Mars, which we just saw the trailer for along with this movie, and Mission Impossible 4.
Both directed by people who directed movies at Pixar. Brad Bird, who made The Incredibles and Ratatouille, and before that, The Iron Giant, and before that, worked on The Simpsons.
Yeah.
This is his first live-action movie, and I think it looks pretty cool. I love Mission Impossible 3, the J.J. Abrams one. I thought it was great.
Yeah, I'm actually into... Even 2 is, 2 is memorable. Everyone remembers 2. They've all got something... They're showcases for directors.
It's an interesting series like that.
Brian De Palma, John Woo, J.J. Abrams, and now Brad Bird. Yeah.
So I'm interested to see if it is a showcase for directors, and if that pattern holds. I'm interested to see what is Brad Bird doing live action like? I mean, Brad Bird movies, The Incredibles is one of my favorite movies. Excuse me if I gush, but it's a great action movie. But it's also, I mean, all of his movies have a great story, too. And I'm very, very optimistic about it. Same with Andrew Stanton, who's directing John Carter of Mars, with Friday Night Lights, Taylor Kitsch playing the lead. And
that one's a bigger leap because, like you said, like Brad Bird, I think there's such a technical proficiency, and he's so good at making action movies, for lack of a better, animated or otherwise. So it's a bigger leap. Because Stan, he did the Toy Story movies. Is it?
He did Finding Nemo, right. And I believe he did WALL-E. But like, it's weird because they all work. There's like a council of Pixar people. Like John Lasseter worked on WALL-E to some extent too. So I always mix up who directed which ones. But I believe Andrew Stanton is Finding Nemo and WALL-E.
Another reason I'm excited about Mission Impossible 4, and it's something I noticed about movies this summer, and I liked a lot of movies this summer, but almost all of them were science fiction or fantasy. And I love science fiction and fantasy, but I also like, a good, like, die-hard, like, just straight-up action movie.
A good old Night and Day, if you will.
Yes, exactly.
Did you see Night and Day?
I did. Actually, I thought...
That's funny, you were like, I did. Wait, I did!
I know.
That sounds to be all I need to know already.
Well, exactly. I mean, well, so... Yeah, I guess it's nothing... Well, because there's no, like, dragons in it, so I have to, like... I have to sift through so much old wardrobe to remember it.
That's what I liked. I think that's one thing I really liked about Planet of the Apes. I think we said it already. Is that like it was just seeing like something more realistic, like monkeys.
Yeah.
Even monkeys taking over the bridge or whatever it was.
Like what that tells you about the summer when the most realistic movie of the summer was Rise of the Planet of the Apes.
Just like getting back to the basics of like actual animals was exciting. It was like that, getting back to basics and not inventing a whole race of dragon monsters who have a backstory and an RPG you can play for them. Like, just not doing that made it different.
Yeah, and so Mission Impossible 4, I think, will be cool to see just a normal buildings blowing up. I'm nostalgic for the days of just buildings blowing up and regular action. So,
maybe not the best summer for movies is maybe our final verdict. But there was I'm going to pull it out of movies now. You ready?
Yeah.
But there was a cinematic experience this summer that I did think took a lot of chances that you just started called L.A. Noire.
Ah, yes.
With the video game, which is obviously not a movie, it's a video game, but Rockstar making that line a little fuzzier every time out.
Yeah.
L.A. Noire...
I saw as many ads for that as I did for any movie.
It's extremely cinematic, almost to a fault, and I liked L.A. Noire a lot. I didn't love L.A. Noire. I think it's got a lot of problems, but I think it is unquestionably a milestone game that people will look back on as, breaking a lot of new ground.
Yeah.
And I think it's really interesting to talk about. I thought, as much as we talked about these movies not taking chances, I thought L.A. Noire took a lot of chances. It's an extremely big budget game, and a big budget game like L.A. Noire costs as much to make as a movie like Thor. And if anything is less risk averse than summer movies, it's video games. Like, the big budget video games, the ones that cost us much money, are all like Gears of War and Halo. They're all of a certain type, or God of War. They're like Gears of War, God of War. You see a theme. But this is a game, the crux of the game, the main point of the game is watching performances and guessing if someone is telling the truth or not, which is completely untested as a gameplay concept, and they bet the whole farm on it. That's the game.
I enjoy it. I'm like you said, I'm in the middle of it now, and I like it a lot. And you're right that I think it's totally justified bringing it up in this podcast because it really is in terms of the performances. The thing is, the cast for the facial animation, obviously, as if you've read anything about the game, it's like the main thing about it, and it's good, and it's really even the best of it. It's almost not totally, but it's as far out of it's as close to pulling out of the uncanny valley that I've ever seen.
Yeah, in a few years, it's gonna look. It looks great.
It's not. It can't be creepy to watch,
Yeah, it's not creepy to watch.
One of the reasons Green Lantern. Another reason. God, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry, Ryan Reynolds. We keep going back to this, but you mentioned that they digitally added his mask, and it looks bad.
Yeah, it looks terrible in every scene.
But yeah, sorry. So
L.A. Noire is a little bit of that. I've heard a lot of people talk about how the faces are really good, but the bodies are really bad because they worked on all the fancy technologies in the faces. They didn't do it so much for the bodies. But when you're playing the game, I don't think it draws attention to itself. It certainly serves the purpose. And what's cool about it is that it's not just a gimmick. Like, if you made Marcus Phoenix in Gears of War, if you made his face 10 times better, if you made in Uncharted, if you made their face 10 times better, the game's really going to be the same. But in this game, the technology informs the gameplay. Like, that facial capture technology enables you to watch the performances and, play along with the detective in a way that was previously not possible.
Yeah, I think that was a very smart decision on their part. I don't know whether it was out of necessity they did that, or they were like, we have this new technology, let's find an awesome story to wrap it around. But either way, the cool thing, and it's so good, and the cast of the game is like, they got a lot of like actual actor. I mean, it's all actual actors, but a lot of like random that guys in the movie.
Yeah, a lot of character actors.
A lot of character actors whose face but you don't know their name, which is that's the tradition of being like, hey, it's that guy in movies is like, it's a classic movie thing to experience, and I've never experienced it in a game before until now. Like there's one scene where Phelps is sitting in the police department, and like the sort of dispatch officer comes in, and it was like, it's just, I don't know the guy's name, but like I've seen him in like a couple of like Jerry Bruckheimer movies, and I'm like, oh my god, it's that guy, and it's never happened in a game before.
This is the first game where I've seen a performance. I've heard vocal performances in games that I've enjoyed. I think like Team Fortress 2, for instance, has really like fun. Or Portal, all the Valve games, I guess, have fun vocals that add to it. But this is the first time where I've appreciated a physical performance in a game, and that physical performance is adding something to the game, and that is brand new. That's I'm not saying that all games are gonna be like that. Like, I don't think Mario needs to get more realistic, but that is a new frontier for video games, and I find that very exciting. Even if I have I think there's some real problem spots in LA Noire, but that's just brand new ground.
Yeah, and also the main activity of the game, like you said, is like telling whether people are lying, and that's there's some chase scenes and stuff and violence, but you're mostly playing. It's basically like, it's a game where the X button is doubt.
Yeah,
and it's still fun.
And I've seen that. Like, I remember you and I talked about this a lot. In the Lost video game, which we briefly dabbled with, there was a button that was notice. I think it was
remember.
Remember. There was like press A to remember.
What?
And you're like, what? But in LA Noire, it works, and I've never totally seen it work before.
There is a thing I've mentioned this to other people, but like how you can doubt someone, but they're not good at like knowing the level. You have no idea the level to which Phelps will go with his doubts.
Yeah, so
you'll be like,
Phelps is the character you're playing, and it's and for every interview, you have to choose whether you think the other person's telling the truth, whether you should doubt them, or whether you should accuse them of telling a lie.
And if you press doubt, I think what I usually mean is like, oh, come on, are you telling? But you'll press doubt, and Phelps will just flip the table like, you're a fucking liar, you bitch, and so he runs away crying. One other funny thing, the game is so cinematic and so serious. Like, the cutscenes are beautiful, like these beautiful panning shots down to the location. And I'm like a terrible driver in video games, so you have to drive between crime scenes. So I'll get in the car and I'll just like demolish it. But the game doesn't stop you if you mess your car up. And so like I'll knock my hood off, and my tires will be popped, and the windows will be broken, and it'll be all dented, and smoke's coming out of it. And then I pull into, but then I'll always just make it to the crime scene in time. So it's always very funny because it'll cut to this. It'll do the cutscene like the cop just walks up to our like rumbling ramshackle jalopy and like no one notices it. I just think it's very funny.
Yeah, the more realistic a game, the more fun it is to like screw around within the game world. Like, because the graphics are so good, I think it's so funny to make Phelps like skip over the corpse. Like, because everyone like looks really real and they look really serious and they're taking us. Sometimes you get like a real close up of his hand, and it's so, you see his hands a lot because he's operating the notebook. He's operating the notebook.
It's great. It's a great like tactile sensation that they replicate.
Yeah, or you see like a list. He pulls up like some sort of itinerary or like a list of names, and you have to like point at the name on the list that's interesting to you to get the information. The game's not gonna like spoon feed it to you sometimes.
Yeah,
you have to like put it together yourself. And it's so realistic. Like, you can see like his cuticles and like this texture on his finger, and you press a button to point, and you have to point at the right thing. But sometimes I don't know. So Phelps just looked like absolutely insane, just like pointing at everything, waiting for someone to say something to him, waiting for someone to just push him along and be like, "That's right. That's where we're going."
I love that sound when you're looking when his finger's over like a register or a piece of paper, and when you have to tap it, and there's like such a satisfying soft like
do 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 do.
Oh, that as well. But I meant like the finger tapping a book sound. It's like a boom, 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 boom.
Oh yeah. It's like
it's very hard to describe. It's oddly satisfying.
Something about LA Noire I think is really interesting is I've been playing it with my girlfriend who doesn't really play video games. I'm pressing the buttons. I'm operating Phelps, but we're solving the cases together because we watched the person like give the interview and they were like, I don't know, what do you think? Is he telling the truth? Is it?
Yeah.
And I've heard of other people.
You guys didn't see Jeff raise his eyebrows suggestively when he said girlfriend.
I've heard of other people, even couples, like playing the game this way. I think there's like this cool, like unintended single player co-op mode where you can kind of solve the crimes with friends.
Well, yeah, because the crime solving parts anyway are not anyone. Yeah, it just doesn't matter who's pressing the button.
Yeah,
it's very decision solving, and it's hard. Like it does help to have other people there because I'm just operating. I never get all the questions. You know, you ask a series of questions and you can get 2 out of 3. If you accuse them of lying when they're telling the truth, you only get 2 out of 3 or 1 out of 3.
But what makes the game, I think, what really raises the stakes.
Oh, let me ask though. Okay. Have you guys? So you playing with your girlfriend? Have you guys ever like strongly disagreed on whether someone's lying or not? Like,
that's the problem because I'm holding the controller, so like sometimes I have to break away, and it's real. It's like I've definitely been like.
What was the worst one?
It's gone. I'm sure it's gone both ways. Where like she's been like, this is a doubt. I'm like, no, this is the truth, and then I'm wrong. She's like, see, and that. But it must have.
And then you turn the game off and kick her out.
But it must have gone the other way, and it's so tense when you're answering questions in that game because in most games, if you screw up, it's like game over, try again. But in this game, if you screw up, it's like, you accused the wrong guy of murder. Next case, and like you just can't easily go back and like try to just do it correctly. You have to like live with the fact that you messed up. You only get one shot at it. But there are problems with the game that prevent it from being like, you know, I like the game, and obviously I have a lot. I really respect the risks it took. But there's some I think there's some fundamental problems with the game. The action scenes, I think, are really bad. Like, the shooting is really lazy. And that's something Rockstar does a lot, is, like, if it's not in the game that much, they just don't try that hard. Like, I think the stealth missions are kind of boring. There's one part in one of the cases, I think towards the end of the murder desk, where you're literally in a maze. You're in a hedge maze, and you just have to get to the middle of the maze, which is, like, the first thing they tried in video games.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah.
Like,
it's just an odd direction they took at that point.
You know, I think the game is brilliant at like it flies high, but sometimes you're just particularly that last murder case, the one with the maze, and I don't think you've gotten that far, so I won't get that into detail. But if you played it, you know what I'm talking about. No. But there's different desks. There's like the traffic desk, and this is I think the last one in the murder desk I thought was really tiresome and really unfun.
Well, yeah, there are parts where like
chore to get through.
I think they realized they can't, or at least they didn't want. They took some risks about making it a much slower paced game and all about problem solving, but there's still car chases and gun chases. There's one part in which kind of feels like that, but I actually enjoyed it when you chase some. You go to the set of the movie Intolerance, which is this cool level, epic, like just enormous.
Really, I think really existed in LA for a long time, I believe.
Yeah, and there's like just giant gangways of like wooden things, but it's all rickety and falling apart. And there's this part where you're basically chasing this guy, you're chasing this bad guy along the set, and it's straight up like you're playing Crash Bandicoot because like you'll be running on some wooden planks and they'll fall behind you. You have to like jump left and right, but I do like the foot chases in the game. I find those very like fun.
Yeah, they're just like from a different game. It's almost like the game uses them for punishment. Like if you mess up the interview and you don't get the right information, then it's like now you have to do a foot chase, which we know isn't as fun as the thing you were doing. Like the game punishes you sometimes. Like I accused the wrong guy of murder. The commanding officer was like, "Get back out there and solve some street crimes until I have enough respect for you again." I was like, "Fuck off!" I was like, "This isn't a job. Like I don't have to impress you. I paid $60 for this thing."
It's funny because you said in Red Dead Revolver you'd mentioned that there's a similar thing where like there's a period in the game where you're just you're just hunting and fishing.
Yeah, Red Dead Revolver.
Or is it Red Dead Redemption, actually?
Yeah, Red Dead Redemption. No one really talks about Red Dead Revolver.
Yeah,
like,
it's interesting.
I'm trying to think of the movie equivalent where like part
People
2.
like the sequel more.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Anyway, Red Dead Redemption also takes some risks.
The Dark Knight.
Oh yeah, The Dark Knight's a great example.
Yeah.
So Red Dead Redemption also takes some risks at the end. I guess this is a spoiler. I thought this was one of the most interesting things I've ever seen done narratively in a video game. So Red Dead Redemption, and this is maybe the only thing in the episode that I think legitimately warrants a spoiler alert, which shows a lot about the way movies and games are converging. Where I don't think it's warranted on Transformers 3, but I think it is in Red Dead Redemption.
Yeah.
Okay, I was a little wrong earlier. This episode needs 2 spoiler alert breaks. If you still haven't played Red Dead Redemption, maybe you're waiting for the 3D re-release on PlayStation 5, you should skip ahead about 3 minutes and 30 seconds. And once again, I guess I'm just gonna kill some time while everyone figures out how to fast forward on their phone. Alright, that's enough Bubble Bobble theme. Let's get back to the show. So Red Dead Redemption is all about you are trying to get, the government is holding your family hostage to make you kill this criminal who you used to be with. And then you kill the criminal, and then you get your family back. And, you know, you kill the criminal. I think he falls off a cliff, or I forget what happens. And then, any other game, that's game over. You've just defeated Bowser. And then you have to ride back home, and the game plays this song, which is rare that the game uses music very sparingly. So, it's already, you're like, I thought this was going to be over. And then you get back home, and you get your wife and kids back. And then, you're just living with your wife and kids for a lot of gameplay. There's like an hour of gameplay, maybe even more, where you're teaching your son to rope cattle, which I thought was the most boring part of the game in the first time through.
Yeah.
You're like, you have to, you're like retired. Like there's this one part where the birds are pecking.
And does it ever go back to the main story?
You can still go out and do side missions. Like there's like, you can still pick up like, cause it's a Rockstar game, so there's tons of.
So the game essentially never ends.
No, there's an end. So, there's one mission where these birds are like pecking at your like grain tower, and you have to go out and shoot the birds. And like I couldn't shoot the birds, like I wasn't shooting them fast enough, and you can't proceed until you do it. Like I kept getting a game over, and
like these darn birds.
And I had to like go online and like look up like what weapon to use and what I was doing wrong about the bird. We're like this Monday.
Like, have you tried spreading peanut butter on a pine cone?
And I've like gone into Mexico and like conquered Mexico and like taken apart this criminal empire. But, like, the wife's like, birds pecking at the grain tower. And, like, that's the game over for him. So this is a narrative risk. This is something I haven't seen in video games before. But actually playing it, sitting there and teaching the kid to rope cattle, I thought was incredibly boring. And it failed as a game. The game eventually brings it around where, like, the government comes and they're like, we got another mission for you, John. And he's like, no way. And the protagonist, John, who you've been playing the whole game, gets killed in a government shootout. Like, it's one of those... I love this video game levels that are designed to you're designed to lose.
Yeah,
you know,
like the airport one from.
Oh yeah, no, it's in Call of Duty.
Oh yeah,
there's the terrorist mission.
You get
where
shot. Spoiler alert: you get shot in the head at the end of it.
You're supposed to lose. This is one of those where you're supposed to lose, and then it's like 15 years later, and then you're the son, and then the son has like one last level where he takes revenge for his father.
That seems like.
It sounds very interesting when I'm describing it.
Yeah.
But when you're sitting there playing the game and like leading the kid on a cattle run, you're like, why the fuck am I doing this?
It's more interesting from like a scholarly video game. Like, what does this mean about gameplay? Like, what does it make you think about? But then actually doing it is just boring.
But I think it does go to show, and I think Rockstar, even though I don't love their games, they're not my favorite games, is on the front lines of this. That the movies and games like are converging, and like I think everything's getting more mediocre. But the thing that we go to the movies for, the thing that we like about summer movies, you can kind of see in video games too. Like God of War 3 is like a lot of spectacle and special effects that you can't see in other games. And it seems like maybe movies are certainly getting more video game-like, and video games are getting more movie-like.
And just to even tie it back to like Planet of the Apes or whatever, what's the actor's name? Aaron Stanton? Ken Cosgrove. The guy who plays Phelps, you know, this
the main character in LA Noire, who's Cosgrove on Mad Men. Mm-hmm. Okay, his performance in that game is great. Mm-hmm. And there's a whole see pictures and read articles about how they did it, but he has tons of dialogue. He has to have questions, and he has a backstory, and he gives a really good performance. And kind of like Caesar in Planet of the Apes, it's like what. There's not that actors need more recognition or anything, but how do you classify this?
Yeah, like no one. It's a very interesting performance. Is that worthy of some kind of acting award? Does such an award exist?
It's a new thing, and I think that's exciting.
Yeah. Two great digital performances this summer.
Yeah, in two different mediums.
Wow,
it's cool.
That's what we're getting at this whole episode.
I think we maybe accidentally arrived somewhere. Maybe we should call it here.
No, let's go back to Green Lantern for a minute.
Oh, you want to plug your blog? Let's talk about your blog for a sec.
Which the movie blog or
yeah,
blog?
A 10-year-old. What are my options?
10-year-old movies.
Yeah. Let's talk about 10-year-old movies before we end here. Because you have a blog that's terrific. It's called 10-year-old movies. How do I get there? It's what?
10yearoldmovies.com.
Great, you bought the domain. What is there?
It's just like little short retrospectives on movies that came out more or less exactly 10 years ago. It was originally exactly 10 years ago, but that was like forcing me to review like really bad movies.
So what have you reviewed there?
I reviewed
Scream 3. I like that one.
Scream 3. I'm trying to think of other ones.
Space Cowboys, was that on there?
That didn't do Space Cowboys. Oh, I'm sorry.
Why do I think you did Space Cowboys?
What was it? Down to You, which is a Freddie Prinze Jr. Julia Stiles movie.
And they're movies that like you
The
don't.
cool thing about those was like teen movies are very. They kind of get at what you're trying to. I've noted in doing this, I've learned that like teen movies. I mean, the idea is to see like what subtle changes have happened. In the
that's
world
what I think is so interesting about it is because you don't. They're not movies that seem like they came out a long time ago. Like Scream 3 doesn't seem like an ancient movie, but if you go back and watch it now, it is from a different era, and you like identify how that is.
I was actually having dinner with this girl, and I went to college with her, and we were kind of like catching up, and she was like. She mentioned something about a movie that I reviewed on there. It's like, oh, I reviewed it for this website. She's like, oh yeah, I know that. I've gone there. I was like, cool. And she's like, I stopped reading it because it makes me feel old.
What's a good example of a movie? What's like a good? I thought there was a good one in Scream 3. What is a good example of something you saw in a movie where you're like, oh man, this is totally from a different era?
Actually, I haven't published it yet, but the last one I watched, and I have to. Was the last one I watched but haven't yet published was Antitrust, which was the Ryan Felipe.
That's 10 years old. I felt like I'm thinking of Firewall. I think Firewall came out.
Yeah. Well, this movie it's Ryan Felipe and
is it Harrison Ford?
No,
I'm thinking of Firewall.
Get Firewall out of your head, man. Tim Robbins as like a Bill Gates surrogate, and it's exactly the kind of it could not have been made like any other week, let alone any other year. It's very specifically about it came out during the Microsoft antitrust case, and it's like a really bad like murder thriller but using like this Microsoft computer very dated thing. And there's this whole subtext in the movie about open source software, and like that's the message of the movie about like open source. It's a very pro open source movie.
That's kind of cool. That's still around. Like that's still. I think that doesn't sound that dated because that is still a thing that like I guess it's a movement that people are still behind and is still growing and like could still use some positive messaging. I was thinking more. I remember which one I was thinking of. The example of in Scream 3. There's a joke about a cell phone, right?
Oh, that's right.
What is that?
Okay, so they're all like running around, and her and Dewey's like the goofball cop, David Arquette, and Courtney Cox was like, they're like, we have to find this one character. Where are they? Dewey, do you have her in your memory? And Dewey like thinks about it for a second, and she's like, I mean cell phone memory.
That joke has to be made at a point where people understand that cell phones can store numbers in their memory. Yeah. But before everyone had all of their numbers in their memory. It's such a specific
Right, if
era.
you made the joke now, it would be like, come on, no one would ever actually think she meant memory.
Right.
But if it was too early, it'd be like, what the hell is cell phone memory?
And so 10 years is just maybe the perfect amount of time.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
yeah.
10-year-old movies.
10yearmovies.com. Yeah, it's a fun website.
10yearmoldmovies.com. Green Lantern.
What else do you need to know?
Check them out.
I'll review that one in 10 years.
Thanks again for joining us, Pat.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
That is it for this week's show. If you want to know when the next episode is out, you can look at a calendar because they come out on Tuesday mornings, or I'll just tell you if you follow my Twitter, that's @JeffRubinShow, my Facebook, which is just a Facebook fan page, you can search for it, or my Tumblr @JeffRubin, JeffRubin.com. I'll talk to you guys more next week. Bye.